When I think of games that have truly stood the test of time, there are a few that come to mind. Usually, these games are pioneers in some way, shocking players with never-before-seen mechanics, graphics, creativity, stories, or realism. The thing these games excel at is immersion, creating a space where the player truly feels like they're in the world on their screen. The games that achieve these things become instant classics and are played for years, even decades after their release, with both hardcore enthusiasts and new players enjoying the game throughout that entire span. Even though many legendary games have earned this sort of legendary title, there's only one that instantly comes to mind when it comes to racing games: Assetto Corsa. Now, I'll keep this brief, but I want to explain why Assetto Corsa is such an important franchise within racing games, and more specifically, sim racing. When this game made its final release in 2015, it was instantly met with praise across multiple game review publications. People instantly recognized just how revolutionary this game was in terms of real track simulation, from car setup options all the way to how the tires interact with the track. There was a bit of criticism about the AI models and weather limitations, but the raw simulation aspect was what made this game shine. With the hard work of development done and the game released, the community picked up the slack and remedied a lot of Assetto Corsa's shortcomings. As of now, the amount of mods available for download are quite easily in the tens of thousands. These range from practical mods like shaders and graphics upgrades, new tracks, AI traffic, new cars, and of course, some of the most ridiculous things you've ever seen. Like, seriously, this is insane. The way I see it, Assetto Corsa laid a basic foundation for a real, proper simulator, and in doing so they essentially created a sandbox for a vast landscape of driving simulation through experimentation, mods, and compatibility with many different systems and hardware. This game is 10 years old now, and it's still widely regarded as one of the best for many different reasons. Now, with this in mind, let's take a look at its widely anticipated predecessor, Assetto Corsa EVO. The wait is finally over, it's here. It's important to note that this version of the game is still an early access release, with the full release date coming sometime in fall 2025. The early access version of this game includes 5 tracks: Brands Hatch, Imola, Laguna Seca, Mount Panorama, and Suzuka. This also includes a small array of 20 initial cars, like the BMW M4 CSL, the Porsche GT3, the Toyota GR86, Ferrari 296 GTB, and Alpine A110S, and many more. However, upon the initial release, there were issues getting a hold of all 20 cars, but there was literally an update like an hour after the game came out, so now all 20 cars are there, so that's good. As the game gets updated, or maybe at the full release, I'm sure we'll see more cars and tracks added. But we'll get into that in a moment. First, let's dive into the features of this release and my experience so far. First things first, Assetto Corsa EVO has dynamic weather changes, as well as a proper day and night cycle, something we see in Assetto Corsa Competizione. Something very cool that was added in Assetto Corsa EVO is localized weather, so certain parts of the track might have different conditions. For example, one side of the track might be dry, but on the other side of the track you could encounter active rain or standing water. This is an incredible addition to the game that really adds to the realism the developers are going after. There's also a gravity-based weather system, so if it's raining, rain will hit the track surface and accumulate at lower points, so the water will run down a hill on track and pool at the bottom. Obviously, both of these factors affect the track surface, which directly impacts the car's handling. One thing I noticed when driving in the rain is that you can feel brakes and traction at certain points, like the car is starting to hydroplane. The feedback is pretty obvious through the wheel, which is a very nice addition to the game in terms of realism, as you can feel the car start to slide out of grip. Still on the subject of dynamic tracks and grip, they added much more dynamic tire wear, which comes in many different forms. For example, if you lock up into a braking zone, you can create a flat spot on your tire, which creates vibrations and affects your handling for the rest of the time on that set of tires. They've also included much more accurate tire data like temperatures, wear, and blistering, which is definitely an improvement compared to the first game. The details of tire wear in this game are incredibly impressive, and you can really feel these effects on track and how they interact with the car's performance. The tracks also have very pronounced but realistic feeling bumps. Obviously, all tracks aren't perfectly flat, and the way the car handles and reacts to these bumps feels incredibly real. Now, let's get into the physics. One of the first things I noticed playing this game is how realistic the grip feels. Many games try and fail in certain aspects to create a well-rounded handling system that encompasses the feeling of both mechanical and aerodynamic grip. In Assetto Corsa EVO, that is not the case at all. When taking corners at different speeds and at different cars, you can really feel the tires working how they're supposed to. You can feel how cornering at different speeds affects the car's handling and aerodynamic grip. It's quite impressive. In rear-wheel drive cars, you have a great feeling of back-end tire response and lack of traction if the rear end kicks out. When fully focusing on the tires and just the feeling of grip, I can confidently say that this feels much more realistic than a lot of other games out there. There's also very pronounced feedback when going over curbs, something that a lot of other games aren't so good at replicating. Different curbs react with your suspension in different ways. However, in Assetto Corsa EVO, this interaction between the curb and the tires is extremely noticeable, but not too overdone. They feel accurate to how they look on track. Cornering is also fantastic. The force feedback feels accurate and smooth right from the jump. I barely adjusted my force feedback settings my first time playing this game, and from the start it felt great. You can feel hints of body roll and weight transfer through the force feedback, and it feels incredibly detailed from car to car. The track surface also feels realistic, and the brakes and throttle at mid-corner feel incredibly responsive and smooth. You can get a good sense of how the car is handling into, through, and out of each corner. It just feels more raw and mechanical than some of the other serious sim racing games I've played, which is very impressive. Now, obviously, I'm not a real-life race car driver, but this feels pretty accurate compared to both the first Assetto Corsa and a lot of the other competitors out there. Braking is also an important thing to highlight. In ACC, we're used to cars slightly lunging forward under braking, and all of that momentum shifting towards the front wheels, affecting the handling of the cars and how you approach your line. In Assetto Corsa EVO, this goes even further. Into a braking zone, you really feel this pronounced shift of momentum through the wheel as the weight transfers to the front axle. This brings forth an almost twitchy feeling of the rear end struggling to grip the track as the weight is taken off, which is extraordinarily realistic. Conversely, accelerating out of a corner does the opposite, and you can feel that weight shift back down to the rear of the car, and the rear suspension squat down as you increase the power. The handling for braking and accelerating is truly fantastic, and you can really feel it through your steering wheel. The handling in this game essentially feels like they took the physics out of ACC, upgraded them to make them even more pronounced and realistic, and then put them into this game where they're accessible to road cars. Since road cars are a lot less stiff than race cars, these handling models become even more pronounced and easy to feel. It really feels like you can understand how the car is reacting to your input much more clearly. Now, even though feeling this feedback through your steering wheel is important, it's just as important to have a good cockpit. That's where Race GT comes in. They produce high-quality sim racing cockpits for a fraction of the price of their competitors, and they have products that suit both beginners and more serious sim racers. By using my discount code in the description, you can get 5% off any product site-wide, so if you're in need of an upgrade, definitely check them out. Now, one thing that the first Assetto Corsa lacked was any sort of career mode or progression. At times, it was more of a hot lap simulator. This all changes with Assetto Corsa EVO, as this game includes a much more intensive career mode. This is something we see in almost every other racing game, ranging from arcadey titles like Forza Horizon, all the way up to more accurate sims like ACC and iRacing. Assetto Corsa EVO was aimed for a broader audience, so to include a more extensive career mode is something that helps reach that objective. This was a huge priority for the development team. There's also a very in-depth car customization aspect coming to the game in a future update, as well as driver character customization. Car customization includes cosmetic options, but is also said to include in-depth tuning for performance and aerodynamics. This is a huge step for Assetto Corsa, as it makes the game more engaging for both casual players and serious sim racers. As they add more cars and tracks to the game, along with more extensive customization options, there will be even more to do in the world of career mode, which is very exciting. As for races, honestly, right now it's a little weird. Almost every time a new racing game comes out, the AI competitors always need a little bit of tweaking, which is the case here as well. I will say, for the most part, the AI is decent. They back off a little too much if you're challenging them, and sometimes they have questionable moments. But so far, it's not too bad. They're pretty quick on a high difficulty, and generally they're good at going for smart overtakes on the player. There have been a few bugs with races though, especially rainy ones. For some reason, every now and then, once you load into a race, the game just kind of turns into mush, the frames drop, and it becomes insanely laggy, and before you say anything, no, it's not my PC, I triple checked everything, and also ran with the lowest graphic settings possible, and the same issue persisted. I just had to restart the game and it would go away. Obviously, that's a bug, and it'll get fixed soon. Keep in mind, this is an early access build, and this is in no way a finished product. Speaking of which, let's get into what's to come for the full release. As I mentioned earlier, I'm sure more cars and tracks will be added to the game by the developers, but how about mods? As of right now, this release does not support modding capability, but the developers confirmed mods will absolutely be possible later down the line. It's unclear if that may come sooner than the planned full release date in the fall of this year, but it is coming nonetheless. Something else that's driven the sim racing community crazy is the open world that will be coming to Assetto Corsa. The open world covers the Eifel region around the Nürburgring, and according to the developers, this will cover 1,600 square kilometers, all laser scanned and recreated using innovative terrain technology developed by Kunos. This full open world will be released in stages, along with new features and content. Players will have the unique opportunity to interact with local businesses, rent cars, and upgrade vehicles with aftermarket parts. This was absolutely earth-shattering news to a lot of fans anticipating the game, and this open world is planned to release in stages, with the first release coming in summer of 2025. This will open the game up in so many ways and allow Assetto Corsa players who prioritize realism an option seemingly similar to the open world of Forza Horizon. With the intensely realistic physics of Assetto Corsa EVO, an open world is kind of the best of both worlds for sim racing fans. So after all this, it begs the question, is Assetto Corsa EVO worth the money? Well, yes and no. For me, it's worth the money because I've been waiting on this game for what feels like forever, and experimenting with the physics and how the cars react is a lot of fun, even if the game isn't as polished as it should be. For the most part, all the physics and mechanics are there. The HUD looks nice, the cars and tracks look great, the sound design is fantastic, and there's enough cars and tracks in the game to experiment for a while. However, it is missing a lot of finishing touches, such as AI updates, a better replay mode, career mode or challenges, online lobbies, and many more. As time goes on, the game will continue to be tweaked and improved, but as of right now, it's in a fantastic state. Obviously, I would prefer to have more options for cars and for tracks, options within career mode and modding capabilities, but those will come with time. As it stands right now, the physics of the cars feel incredible, like a real proper upgrade to the franchise. Cornering, braking, accelerating, and aerodynamics all feel incredibly smooth and accurate, and the heightened attention to detail in terms of realism is absolutely prevalent. There's a bit more of a raw driving feeling to this game compared to other games in the same category. From driving road cars at slower speeds to pushing performance cars to their limit around a track, there's just something that clicks on Assetto Corsa EVO. Obviously, as mods are created, they'll do a lot to further improve the game, from graphics and shaders to new tracks and new cars. However, Assetto Corsa EVO does really greatly improve upon that first game, and it does so in a subtle but attentive way. If you're thinking of picking up Assetto Corsa EVO, I hope this review helped you out. I expect there will be constant updates to slowly improve the bugs and glitches, so if you're looking for a realistic feeling driving sim, this will absolutely get the job done. You can expect a lot more content on this game from me, so if you want to see that, subscribe and stick around. Anyway, that'll do it for now, so if you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.